Dakota Johnson. Jamie Dornan was forced away from me. The sunset tinged the towering glass buildings with gold, but inside Dakota Johnson's apartment, the air was as heavy as a winter fog. She sat on the sofa, her phone still on the table, staring at the screen, where the email from her agency still appeared. For image and contractual reasons, you and Jamie Dornan will not be seen together again for at least 6 months. Dakota took a deep breath. 6 months. To her, it wasn't just time, it was an insurmountable distance. Jamie Dornan, whose true feelings she had only just begun to accept, was now being forced away from her like a cruel scene in real life. She remembered the evening last week, when Jamie had visited her at her apartment. They had laughed, talked about everything, movies, music, future projects. It was a rare time when they felt free, no role, no judging eyes. Jamie looked at her with a gentle, uninhibited gaze. Dakota had thought, maybe this is enough, as long as we can see each other like this. But the management company, the advertising contracts, the media, all of these things had drowned that small hope. Dakota felt as if a part of her heart had been taken away. She couldn't blame anyone, because everyone said, "We're just protecting your career." But her heart knew, she and Jamie weren't allowed to be true to each other, at least not in public. That night, Dakota opened her laptop and began to write. Not for anyone to read, not to post, but to pour out her confused thoughts. Jamie, I don't know if I'm strong enough to overcome this distance. We've only just started, and now we're being forced apart. Everything seems to be against us. I'm afraid that if we keep going like this, we'll lose each other completely. She wrote, then tore it up, and threw it in the trash. A routine that repeated itself many nights after that. Those unsent letters were the only evidence of a connection the outside world wouldn't allow him to have. The secret meeting. A week later, Dakota received a strange text message. If you want, we can meet. Somewhere no one knows. Jamie. Just a few words, but it made Dakota's heart jump. They arranged to meet at a small cafe by the river, where few people passed by. When Dakota arrived, Jamie was already sitting there, looking out the window, the afternoon light reflecting off his face, softening the hard lines. They didn't say much at first. They simply looked at each other, breathing in sync, feeling each other as people who had once shared a part of their soul. Jamie took Dakota's hand, her voice low. I know what you want. But we can't go public. They forced us. Can you forgive me? Dakota was silent. Forgiveness? She wasn't angry with him. Angry with who? Angry with the management company, angry with the contract, or angry with her own heart for not knowing how to protect itself? Not forgiveness, Jamie. It's just, I'm scared that this distance will swallow everything between us. Jamie looked at her for a long time, then pulled her into a hug. Both of them could only cry in silence, like children forced to leave their parents' arms. They knew that this moment was precious, but at the same time, it was as fragile as glass. Pressure from all directions. The next day, Dakota returned to the set, but everything had changed. Jamie's presence became distant, while every scene reminded her of him. She tried to concentrate, but the curious eyes of her colleagues, the warning messages from her manager, and the paparazzi always lurking made her feel like she was living in a play with no way out. She remembers the times Jamie would smile and say, "We'll find a way through this. No matter what, you'll always be in my heart." But Dakota knows that heart isn't enough to stand up to the power and rules of Hollywood. She begins to wonder, can true love survive if it's not allowed to be expressed? Can genuine emotion be strong enough to withstand societal pressures and rigid contracts? As the months pass, Dakota continues to write unsent letters, both as a way to vent her feelings and as a way to keep Jamie close, even if only in her imagination. Each letter is a reminder. We were truly in love, and no one can take that away. The pressure from the company and the media was getting heavier. Jamie and Dakota tried to meet secretly, but every time was full of risks. One day, paparazzi caught the image of the two leaving the cafe, which immediately spread all over social networks. The management company was angry. Jamie was forced to appear with Amelia Warner at a big event, and Dakota was asked to stay away from any project that Jamie was involved in. Both were immersed in the vortex of rules. Without being able to resist, Dakota felt a mental shock. That night, she sat by the window, looking at the city full of lights. Those sparkling lights to her now seemed like invisible pillars, preventing her and Jamie from being together. She wrote another letter, this time longer, more painful. Jamie, I feel like the whole world is forcing us apart. I don't know how much longer I can take it. Every day, seeing you with Amelia in the papers, I feel like I'm being torn apart. But I can't blame you. I can only blame this fate. Tears mixed with the ink, falling onto the paper, as if the pain had turned into material. Dakota knew she couldn't send this letter, because if she did, they would both face a fierce wave of media, and they could really lose each other. The turning point. One evening, Jamie called Dakota. His voice was trembling. Honey, we need to talk. Not on the phone, not through text. Let's meet, one last time, to understand each other clearly. They met on the beach, where no one knew. The waves were lapping, the cold wind cut into their faces. Dakota and Jamie stood face to face, the distance between them only a few steps, but the distance felt greater than an ocean. Jamie said, "They forced us to stop, Dakota. But you know, my heart didn't stop. I still love you, but we can't continue like this." Dakota was silent, feeling like her whole world was collapsing. She had prepared herself for the distance, but she was never ready to hear this. They had to end it, at least publicly, at least so that no one would take advantage of their feelings. She cried, not out of anger, but out of pain. Because she knew they truly loved each other, but the world around them wouldn't allow it. "So what are we going to do now?" she asked. Jamie took her hand, squeezed it gently. "We'll live on. But we have to stay apart." They stood there, by the sea, exchanging one last look, like a silent oath. This love exists, even though forced to part.